All right, everybody. Welcome to episode 135 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I'm Josh at Real Fantasy TL. I am with the co-host with the most, Drew at DR_PRA. Drew, how are you doing?
I'm doing great tonight, Josh. Fun to get to do this again this week, and excited to see who we've got with us.
Oh man, I'm excited as well, and I'm also excited because we have a great guest, a DAP Network family member. We got Rocky Petrella at Dynasty FF Addict. Rocky, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. You've told me before I have an open invite, so I'm glad you openly allowed me to invite myself back onto the show a couple weeks ago. So I'm excited to talk to you guys. It's always a fun time.
Like I said, when I give those out, I mean them from the bottom of my heart. And Rocky, anytime you feel like coming on and doing the timeline thing, we will have you. So normally this is where we get into the news, but before we do this, I have to make a retraction from last week's episode. I falsely shamed our man Steve with his Brees Hall trade. I said that we had offered the 102 and the 110. I think that was a trade Bill and I talked about because we co-own that team, but we never actually presented it to old Steve. So Steve, you said no worries. I didn't have to apologize for it. We all make mistakes, but I apologize for it anyway. Uh, we did offer you the 103 second, which I still think is better than the deal you got, but we never offered you the 102 and 110. So that was my bad. I apologize, and I want to put that on the record so that Steve's name is not shamed in these fantasy streets. But now we're going to go to the news. And it was kind of like slow. It was like, is anything going to happen? And then Gronk retires. Maybe. So he said he's hanging it up. Someone put out a great stat that he's 69 receptions away from 690 receptions, which is
Nice.
so Gronk. So good for Gronk. He knows where his bread is buttered. But all right, what do you guys think about this, and where do you guys stand on now the new Twitter debate, which is this is good for Cam Brate. No, wait a minute, this is actually good for Russell Gage. Is it good for one or the other, or maybe is it good for someone else that we're not even talking about? Rocky, since you're our guest, why don't you start us off? How do you feel about Gronk retiring, and who benefits the most?
Well, I'm personally hoping that this is just Gronk further not wanting to participate in off-season activities because I have way too many Gronk shares. I even traded for one like a month ago for a third. I assume the entire time he just did not want to do training camp, did not want to do OTAs. I still think that could be the case. But we talked about this a little on Trade Addicts last night. Justin, who was on, Justin Rogers, he pointed out though there's really no reason Gronk needs to say anything right now. So the fact that he said he's retiring is a little. I still think there's a chance, but he kind of convinced me that he really might be done for this year, unless Tom is desperate and gives him a call later. I think this might actually be a real retirement. So not great for me personally, but I don't think it really helps Brate that much. I mean, obviously he's the lead tight end now, but I saw a tweet someone put out today. There was like 5 games without Gronk last year, and I don't think Brate had more than like 2 receptions in any of them, and I don't even know if he had a touchdown in any of those games. So I think it probably helps funnel more to Evans and Gage more than it would have been already. Godwin's going to be missed early in the year, so I think Gage might be the biggest beneficiary actually.
All right, so we got a vote here for Gage. Drew, what do you think about the Gronk retirement, and who does it help them?
That's a good question. I don't really know. As far as Gronk goes, I'm looking at Pro Football Reference. It looks like he's 79. You're right. 69 short of 690. So if that's really what he's going for, good for him. He's got too many touchdowns, though. He'd have to give a few of those back to make it really nice. But yeah, as far as who it helps, I suppose assuming Brady's back on it this year, he could make anybody relevant. Take your best guess. I guess Russell Gage moving over there from a new team. I'm not seeing anybody else on the depth chart that it seemed like had a real connection with Brady. I don't know where that, is Perryman still there? So maybe he has some upside. And then I know a lot of folks are taking Cade Otton late, see what, the rookie can do in their 4th or 5th round of their rookie drafts this year. Hopefully you're not depending on Cam Brate outside of maybe a bye week or something. If you really went light at tight end, or if you got best ball settings, then he could maybe be in a week for you. But I don't really have a strong projection here. I would take anybody from Gage, Perryman, Cyril Grayson had a couple of flashes last year. So whoever's cheapest, I don't mind having a piece of the offense, but I'm certainly not moving too much to get, Russell Gage. If somebody's going to offer him to me and ask for, much more than a third or anything like that, I'm not interested.
Just real quick, I was just gonna say, if you can get anything for Bray, I would sell him off this. Like, he was worthless prior to yesterday. So if you can even get a third, I would do that. And also, as I was thinking about it, I think the biggest beneficiary might be Evans, because he's clearly the best red zone threat, even when Godwin's there now. So Gronk could have stole some of those red zone looks, and now Evans, 15 touchdowns, baby.
See, and Rocky stole my thunder. I was gonna go see none of the above, because this just makes Evans that much stronger. But like Rocky said, Cam Brate will get his 2 receptions a game, and whatever. Maybe one of them's a touchdown, and he's tight end 11 on the week or something like that. But you're not gonna see too much out of Cam Brate. But by the way, something else Rocky said. Here's a public service announcement. Get Cam Brate off your damn trade block. Ain't nobody want him. Stop it. Even the people that are putting on Twitter that they want him don't want him. They're not trading you anything for Cam Brate. They've seen Cam Brate sleeping on waiver wires and benches for years now. They're not just picking him up. That you probably have a better shot trading your Cade Otton, like Drew mentioned. See if you can get a third for Cade Otton, because someone goes, "Oh, young guy, Gronk is out. Let's get this Cade Otton, and Brady will make him great." All right, fine. At least we've never seen Cade Otton in an NFL game, so we can have some kind of unrealistic hope for him. But we've seen Cam Brate. Stop with Cam Brate on your trade. Every league, as soon as that news hit, I was just getting alerts. Oh, Cam Brate is on a trade block. Cam Brate is on a trade block. Stop with Cam Brate. I would love, though, if people are listening and they want to at Fantasy Time send those Cam Brate trades over. I would love to see if anybody's getting anything for Cam Brate, because I'm not even wasting my time offering you a 5th for Cam Brate. I'm not doing it. I'm not wasting your time. I'm not wasting my time. I'd rather make a trade for a better player. So,
and regarding Cade Otton, I there is no way a rookie tight end is getting any serious run in what might be Tom Brady's final season. He's no way trusting a rookie tight end.
I agree with you. All I'm saying is I think you have a better shot of fooling someone into giving you a third for Cade Otton. You do have fooling someone into giving you a third for Cam Brate.
You're probably right.
That's all I'm saying. And trust me, I'm not out there. So, I did search Cade Otton on waiver wires just to see if maybe he wasn't drafted. In all my leagues, he was on someone's roster. So, and then as soon as I saw he wasn't on a waiver wire, I immediately said, okay, this exercise is over, and I'm not going to even try to trade for Cade Otton. So, recovering really truther, guys are demanding seconds in my leagues, so no break deals have gone down. Dude, a second? What? Yeah, Stop being greedy. Take a third if someone gives it to you, and thank the fantasy gods that you got that. Stop a second. People get wild when news comes out. I always joke around with Drew every time a news blurb, a negative news blurb comes out about a guy, because I'm like, hey, why don't we try to trade a third for this guy that's obviously worth, a high second or a low first, because people are reactionary. But dude, come on, Cam Brate, get out of here. Let's just stop. Stop it.
He's out blocking the OG listener league, guys.
And that's exactly where he's gonna stay. He ain't going nowhere. I won't even bother Bill with asking him if he wants to give up a fifth for a Cam Brate. I ain't gonna do that. And then I thought, Drew, I said, you know what? There's not going to be any news about this guy this week. We've spent 2 straight weeks talking about news, and he's in it. And yeah, it's slow, but he's dominating the headlines right now. And then Monday came, and he was out there, and I was like, I got to throw it on there. Watson has settled 20 of his 24 civil cases. Doesn't matter as far as potential penalty from the NFL. Do you think it matters, or is this just he realizes the road is run out and he's just trying to clean it all up now?
I think it probably doesn't matter that much. It may make it easier because, especially if they settle these other 4 before like training camps or preseason games start, just with it being more out of the limelight, not talked about anymore, it may make it easier to not like the way things were trending. A couple of weeks ago, it seemed like I was starting to think it was almost guaranteed he was getting the year. But if this starts sort of fading into the news cycle and people aren't really talking about it anymore, it might make it easier for them come August to be or July to be like, well, he's getting 8 games or something like that, rather than feeling the public pressure to do the full 17 game season. So that's the only thing for me, and I do think it has had an effect in the market. I think there's already people like his value has gone up because of this. Like he was definitely starting to fade. You were starting to see a little more of those deals where, prior to maybe, like I said, 2 weeks ago when the 25th and 26th case or whatever it was came out, or reports of it, I think people were almost rebounding him to full value. He was going for 2+ first in leagues and things like that. And then it started to dip again. And I think you're already seeing it start to kind of rise back up just off of this news.
What do you think about this, Drew? You think settling the overwhelming majority of his cases, you think this will mean anything for potential punishment from the NFL?
I have no idea. That's a short answer.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'll take a shot at maybe sending a few trade offers now, if it seems like people are feeling a little bit better after seeing some of the settlements, and maybe they'll grind out the last few here, like Rocky said, by August. So I'll definitely test and see. And I know we talked about a trade last week that I missed the boat on that seemed like it was a decent deal. So maybe I'll revisit that one again with the better news and see if I can't get Cousins and Deontay back as another option. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah. Honestly, this is, I actually saw a news blurb that said that the NFLPA would fight for Deshaun, and actually maybe even fight this in court if the league suspended him for a year or more. So that could kind of be an interesting dynamic if the Players Association gets involved. But, at this point, I'm kind of with Drew. Every time I think I have a handle on this, new information comes out. And at this point, I'm just kind of like, I'll wait until Roger Goodell has his press conference and determines what the punishment is going to be, and then see any potential fallout after that.
Yeah, I mean, the one point the NFLPA would have is this that much different than what Robert Kraft was accused of a little while back, and he wasn't suspended from the league for a year, but he's a super rich white guy, so who knows?
Yeah, and that's a really fair point. obviously, when you run a league, you essentially, as commissioner, are working for the owners.
Right.
So that's a much trickier place to be when one of the owners is accused of, I don't want to say similar things, but kind of similar things. I'm not
Yeah,
trying
it's
to.
not exactly the same.
I'm not trying to get into Twitter fight body about this. Somebody will hear it and go, "It's not the same thing." And let me tell you 47 reasons why. I understand that, but there are some similarities, and nothing really happened. And actually, that case blew up for what, 2 or 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden it was kind of like we didn't hear anything about it anymore, and we're not talking about it anymore. Um, Deshaun Watson, this has been going on for, I mean, we're going on 2 years now. So yeah, it'll be interesting. And again, we're covering Ridley Truther with a good question. Are you seeing a lot of Watson owners kind of already planning on punting 2022, so they're content holding, or want top five prices with the recent news? I mean, honestly, I think if you were planning to hold Watson through 2022, uh, figuring that there was going to be a year-long suspension, you were going to want top five prices no matter what. Because if you're punting the season and you believe that Deshaun Watson was going to be suspended for 17 games, that's a zero every week. And that helps when you're punting a season, when you got a guy scoring you no points, that when he's out there and he's at his best is a top 5 to top 8 quarterback in the league, and he's getting you a zero every week. That's nice. So I don't know if this news really changes much, because you're either going to still holding him. I mean, who knows? Maybe this lessens his suspension from a year to 10 games, and you get 7 games of Deshaun Watson. But that's still 10 zeros that you're just kind of putting in the bank as you roll towards a possible 101. So I think either way, you're still, asking for a lot if you plan on trading him, because if not, you're going to get a bunch of zeros, and that's going to help you out in your cause. You guys have any thoughts about this?
I'm
I
looking
think-
at DLF Trade Finder right now, and what a difference a day makes.
Oh man, all right. You have to give us
Okay.
pre-settlement trade.
3 days ago on the 19th,
Okay.
in a 12-team. Actually, let me just double check that I have the right. I think it's got all the right settings in here. Yeah, 12-team super flex. One Deshaun Watson for Rondale Moore.
Wait, that's it?
That is it.
Oh wow.
From 3 days ago.
All right. Well, Drew just said something that's gonna make me take the rest of the episode off. So you guys handle this business yourself. I can't even.
We're gonna go a couple.
Insane.
We're gonna go another day earlier. So on the 18th, we have Deshaun Watson in exchange for Nick Westbrook Ekine and the 2.02.
Oh my god. I get wanting to get out, but that's ridiculous. Like, just hold.
We have the day before that on the 17th, Deshaun Watson in exchange for Mitch Trubisky, Khalil Herbert, and a 23 second.
Well, we know Josh loves Mitch, so
As of today,
not that much.
Actually, yesterday, there are a couple of trades for Deshaun Watson for Justin Fields straight up.
Oh, okay. Like it's not, ideal, but
it's
way
better than Rondale Moore.
way better than any of that crap you just spit out.
And then today, I'm curious where you both stand on this one. Deshaun and the 108 for Dak in the 203.
Is that in a 12 league or
12 team super flex?
So that's 22 picks then, if you're giving me exact numbers. Yeah.
Yep.
So I guess they haven't had their rookie draft yet. I think I would take the Deshaun side, but I've been generally kind of more willing to take on Watson than a lot of people are since the beginning of this, because the NFL wants him to come. That's why I don't necessarily think it will be a year. I think at one point the optics of it were looking like they'd have to give him a year, but I think they want him back on the field. So I think if you can withstand a half a season or so of no Deshaun Watson, I would take Watson in the 108. I'd rather straight up. There's no issues. I'd rather have Watson over Dak. So I'll take the uncertainty tax and take the 108 over the 203.
See, I think I would take the Dak side because you're only dropping what 5 picks, 108 to 203. Oh no, I'm sorry, 7 picks.
Yeah.
7 picks. We're just making. I think if Deshaun was still in Houston, I think this is easily the Deshaun side. But I'm making a lot of assumptions that Deshaun just wakes up after. I mean, a year plus suspension. We don't know what the suspension is going to be, and he's just going to be the same old Deshaun, who, by the way, has never been on a team whose number one receiver wasn't DeAndre Hopkins. And he's just going to be that dude. I think he's going to be pretty damn good. So
he's got David Bell to throw to now, though, Josh.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So he's got Amari Cooper and a lot of unprovenness on a team that I still think is going to run the ball a lot. I don't think you have Nick Chubb, have Kareem Hunt, pay Dearness Johnson a little bit of money, and then just go, nah, we're going to throw it almost 700 times a season. I mean, maybe you do that, but I don't think so. So it'll be interesting. So I think besides, whatever the suspension is going to be, I still think there are a lot of other uncertainties to Deshaun Watson. So I think I take the Dak, but it's not a smash. Take the Deshaun side or the Dak side. Because when you said that, I was like, man.
Yeah, I'm with you, Josh. There's a hidden 3.07 on here that I didn't mention because at that point it's a third. But
yeah,
on which side?
On the Deshaun side.
Okay.
So I think
it doesn't change anything. I was just curious to see where people were valuing that.
Especially if I feel like I'm a strong contender this year. I guess you can make a point if, like you said, Rocky, if you think you can weather half a season, but that's still not guaranteed. So I think if I'm looking at what I would typically consider a contending roster, I'll take Dak and then, hope I can scoop like Isaiah Spiller or somebody like that at the 203, add to my running back depth, maybe get some value back there. So I like that one. But I just love seeing that the value is going back that way. And then, Ridley Truther here. I'm sure he knows that Ridley market really well. But yeah, to think you couldn't.
Yeah.
That's
I got
crazy.
a second for Ridley earlier in the offseason. I was thrilled about that. Like it was tough to get a second for Ridley.
Good for you. Because I wouldn't have even given you the change out my pocket for Ridley. So good for you getting a second. You get a clap for that because that's a good one. All right. So through the news, let's go right to the timeline. And first one here is from Scott at Scott A. Ferguson 1. What is the value on Zach Wilson right now in Superflex Dynasty? Now, if you don't know, Rocky, huge Zach Wilson fan. Huge. I'm going to let him answer this question after I read the choices in the poll here. A 23 mid-first, a 23 mid-first and second, less than a 23 first, or wouldn't touch him. Now, Rocky's probably going to say 3 first, but Rocky, you can only choose from those 4 options. Zach Wilson, Superflex Dynasty, where do you got him at?
This is easily wouldn't touch him for me. I don't know if I'd give a 23 second for him, but I probably would give a 23 second, but I would not give a 23 first for him. You're joking, but I have no interest in Zach Wilson. This before he even played a game, I thought he was not very good. I've been trashing him since the draft last year. I don't think he's a very accurate quarterback. He had decent accuracy numbers his final year in terms of percentage, but watching him play as the amateur scouts we are, Josh, it's almost every pass I saw back in this last year of college. I watched I think 6 or 7 games cut ups of them, like cut up of games. And even when he was completing passes, guys were reaching behind him. Guys were wide open and having to grab balls like above them, behind them. I don't think he's very good. I think he tries to do too much sometimes, and I don't think he's gonna last throughout his rookie contract. They've set him up so well, and I still don't think he's gonna perform. I've learned my lesson from Drew Lock. I don't care what the weapons are around you. So I think I just do not think he's very good. I want no parts of him. I have him on no rosters, and I probably never will. Unless he
So,
starts looking like Justin Herbert in year 2 or something.
so Rocky, you and I love debating with you, but you and I have had very similar stances on Zach Wilson. I was saying before last year's draft, everyone was talking about him at QB2. I said he's probably QB4, and I honestly lied because I
I
underestimated
had
Mac.
him at 5.
I underestimated Mac Jones, and he should have been quarterback 5. But I said, all right, I watched Zach Wilson play for the Jets, and he did have, flashes of brilliance. But I said, man, that price is going to depress, and then I'm gonna get me a couple shares, just to hedge my bets. And then the Jets had to go out and be like a competent NFL team. They draft Garrett Wilson. They get more offensive line help for him. I mean, they really have built them up. And now all of a sudden, the value doesn't depress. Because now we're like, well, now he has Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore. And Corey Davis is probably the wide receiver 3, which, if the wide receiver 3 on your NFL team is Corey Davis, you're not mad about that. You're like, okay, this is good. They signed CJ Uzoma and Tyler Conklin, who are competent tight ends. Not, they draft Jeremy Ruckert, who I think is an interesting prospect. And I'm like, God, they take Breece Hall. Like they've really loaded up around this guy. And everyone in fantasy world is like, well, look at all the weapons. Like you said, the Drew Lock argument, but a lot of people don't buy into that. A lot of people go, well, it can't be bad because everyone else around him is good, which we all know is false.
Yeah, and Zach Wilson has the bonus of being the number 2 pick of the draft. Lock was a second round pick, so there were some people in the NFL and in the fantasy community who thought higher of Zach going in than they did Drew Lock, which makes it easier to to kind of prop him up now.
Yeah, and I've also said that we have to be careful with and I'm talking about all of us, our old way of thinking about NFL quarterbacks, because we've seen in the last 2 or 3 years, teams are ready to boot. It doesn't matter if you have a big contract or you were a top 5 pick. They're ready to boot you as soon as they can find somebody better. I mean, we're looking at Baker Mayfield right now, number 1 overall pick. 5 years ago, that dude's hanging around for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Good, bad, or indifferent. He's hanging around. And now it's like, well, we got Deshaun Watson. Okay. We're willing to maybe eat half of his contract to trade him. So, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if the Jets stink. And the problem is, I think the weapons around him will make it so that they don't stink enough to get one of the top 2 quarterbacks. But if just throwing a name out here, I don't think this is really going to happen. If Aaron Rodgers all of a sudden gets just disinterested in Green Bay, he says, trade me. I'm not doing anything until I get traded. I'm not talking to you. I'm not coming to camp. I'm not doing anything. And Zach Wilson is average or below average. They might go, all right, here, we'll cut this guy or have this guy sit on the bench for 3 more years. We'll trade for an Aaron Rodgers and we'll run it back with all these weapons, kind of like with what Denver did with Russ.
Mm-hmm.
Drew Lock, not good. They were like, all right, we're gonna get Russ. We have these weapons that we think are good, and we're gonna go ahead. So, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if Zach Wilson doesn't really take a big step up, that they're not looking for other options as soon as next year, because they also have a ton of draft capital, so they can look at a team with a quarterback that's not happy or making too much money and go, hey, we have these pretty picks that everyone likes, and go that route.
And we saw it happen with Josh Rosen. We saw it happen with Dwayne Haskins. Rest in peace.
Yep.
But I mean, neither one of those guys made it through the rookie contracts, starting. So
Yeah. So, what do you think, Drew? What would you give up to get yourself some Zach Wilson?
If I have multiple firsts next year, I would consider whatever the latest one is. So if it happens to be, what I think is going to be in the back third, I'd give up a couple seconds. Again, if I have multiple seconds next year, I'd be willing to take that bet. I'm looking at, again, some trades here and looking at, which of these would I do? Would I give Zach Wilson in the 208 this year to get Daniel Jones in the 205? Probably stick with Zach Wilson and hope is the 102 in the NFL draft. And maybe he gets a little bit more time. There's another one here that I think would be fun for Rocky. Zach Wilson in the 109 or Jalen Hurts this year.
Oh, I would take Jalen Hurts so easy there.
Yeah, I don't even like Jalen Hurts, and it's Jalen Hurts.
I like Jalen Hurts more than not just because he's an Eagle. I think he's going to improve passing. We've talked about this before, and
Josh Allen.
Yeah, I was waiting for that. But yeah, and even if he doesn't, I think he's going to be. I think he's likely starting in this league longer than Zach Wilson is.
Yeah. There's another one down here that's pretty good. Zach Wilson in the 301 this year to move up to the 203.
All right, that's a little disrespectful. Like I said, I've been on record. I'm not a huge Zach Wilson guy, but that's a little disrespectful.
It is. I've got him on a couple of rosters, so I think I'm definitely hoping he shows some potential early on. I think Saleh will have the defense in a better spot this year, and maybe he won't have to do as much as he had to do in college, like Rocky was talking about. So maybe he'll be able to rein it in some, and they'll be able to cover up some of those issues that he's had. And we've seen plenty of guys that seem like they've been getting better coaching, and maybe quarterback coaches or offensive coordinators are getting smarter over the last few years and adapting to some of these young guys coming out. So I think in the right situation, I don't know what the right context would be for my team to feel like I've got to give up a mid to late first next year for Zach Wilson, but I don't think it's out of the question that I'd find myself in a place where I'd be willing to do it. But I think my preference would be if I could trade 2 seconds next year for him, I'd feel okay about taking that risk on.
Yeah, Drew's a much better gauge of this than I am because my hate has gone pretty far. So there's just guys I don't like to, my Wilson. Not that I hate the guy Zach Wilson, but my Wilson hate is on level with my Rojo hate. So,
here we go, Drew. You said something very interesting. You said if you had 2 first-round picks, you could see yourself possibly shipping the later of the 2. So you are going to end up with. I'm going to tell you ahead of time, so you know this. You're going to end up with the 103 and the 109. Are you sending that 109? For Zach Wilson, your quarterbacks are Deshaun Watson, Derek Carr, and me. That's your quarterbacks.
So I've got Ryan Fitzpatrick on my bench still. Good.
Yeah. You're hoping that Amazon didn't just pay him $1 billion to announce games and he comes back to playing football.
I would definitely consider it. The 103, you've got a really good chance of getting one of the top quarterbacks. So I don't know that I would feel the need to send the 109 at that point. If I'm sitting there in like the 105 land and I don't feel good about getting one of the top quarterbacks, then I would maybe feel more like if I have the 109, 105 kind of combo, if that's where I'm projecting. But even then, that's so hard to project. So at this point, I'd have to have a lot of information. We all have a couple of leagues where there's a team or two that you just feel like, okay, if I've got this person's first, they're probably going to be, deep in the playoffs if, as long as the wheels don't totally fall off. But yeah, I think, again, it would be pretty limited, the number of scenarios that I could think of that I'd really make that move right now. But I think there's plenty of them. Or again, if I have 3 firsts next year, and maybe that's probably kind of the typical problem with some of us as dynasty players is the more that we accumulate, maybe we devalue them more than we should. And
I do that all the time. I've said that on podcasts before. If I have 3, 4, 5 first, I'm much more free with sending one away.
Right. So maybe at that point it's okay, great. I'm rebuilding anyways. And again, hopefully I would have a different combination to get there. Maybe I have a Tom Brady, and okay, great. I'll flip Tom Brady for Zach Wilson this year. If there's a contender that wants, last year Brady still trusts he's going to do well, and I'll take on the risk of, maybe I hope I'll get more seasons out of Zach Wilson than I will at Tom Brady at this point. But yeah, I think there's a pretty limited set of scenarios. But in that particular one, Josh, I think I would tell that other person, I'll wait and I'll see kind of where these picks end up at this point.
Drew, do you not have like 3 firsts in every league? I feel like you always want the picks, so you must be trading away players for picks all over the place.
I'll be honest, that's something that I've been trying to get better at. So I've got a couple of leagues where I'm starting to continue to roll into some of the future first more. I've been more, I think, more into getting seconds in the future now. So I've got a bunch of 23 seconds across leagues. I haven't been, and I think 23 firsts have just been so expensive,
impossible to obtain right now.
So I am trying to get into more 24 firsts at this point. So I'm trying to package some things better, especially after we had, oh God, why can't I think? Bobby, since we had Bobby on a couple of the pods, talking through what does it look like to be a couple seasons out. So I've been trying to make some of those deals work, but yeah, I think that's definitely something I want to build in, is figure out how to get better combinations for an upside player and a future first where I can.
It's funny you say that too, though, because like I mentioned, we did Trade Addicts last night, and there were at least like half the deals involved 24 first. I don't think any of them, but one of them involved just 23 first. But it's you're seeing a lot more 24 first exchanging hands because people realize they can't really get those 23s unless you're trading like Justin Jefferson or Kyle Pitts or something.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. I love Justin Jefferson.
So it sounds to me, Drew, like you are trying to lighten your load on some of the picks. So we'll have to make some deals where you give up some of those fancy picks that you're not a fan of anymore, and I can give you some of those those points that you're looking forward to. So I'll hit you up after the show. We'll make some deals where I can lighten your load on the picks a little bit.
That's the problem with co-managing in multiple leagues.
So all right, that was a good one. And just to give you guys kind of the percentages, less than a 23 first hit 36%. And I know both of you guys kind of said something, 2 seconds, something like that, as maybe a place where you could trade for them. A mid first was in second place with 31%. So there's still a lot of people, and that's interesting to me. I might have to shop my one share of Zach Wilson around and see if I can get that mid first, because I would be over the moon if I could get really any first for Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I just real quick, I just wanted to say that's something I feel like I need to get better at is maybe taking some of these guys I don't like sometimes. Like I wish I had taken Zach Wilson and then could trade him for a 23 first. Like you said, I'd be over the moon. Like Drake London is a guy this year that I've avoided in despite how many leagues I'm in every draft. I feel like maybe I should have taken him, and maybe I can get, I could trade him for if he starts off hot, trade him for a 23 first or something like that. But,
yeah, I'm with you. I don't have no Drake London.
But there's people that love him. There's people.
Oh no, I know there's people that love him, and
so you take them to trade them to them. I should be doing that more.
My biggest fear about that is I'm going to take a dude I don't like and then never be able.
You think he will?
and never be able to get a trade done for him, because I'm going to be like, well, don't you love him? Here, give me all this stuff, and they're going to be like, no, and I'm going to be like, all right, can you give me like a little bit less? And it's just going to be this thing where I end up with a guy I hate, and I don't get anywhere near the return I thought I was going to get, and then I'm doubly pissed off. So
yeah, I've done that on Facebook Marketplace a few times. I'm like, crap, this is a great deal for this couch or this thing. That's way undervalued. I'll just put it in storage for a couple of weeks. I'll repost it, let it recycle, and all of a sudden I've got a bunch of shit in my
extra
shed.
Couches. I interrupted you reading the poll off there, Josh. Sorry about that.
No, that's cool. So again, a 23 mid first came in second place at 31%. A 23 mid first and second with 24%, and then rounding out in last place wouldn't touch them at 9%. So not many people on the wouldn't touch them bandwagon.
But over half would do a mid first or more, according to that poll.
Yeah, I might have to shop my one share and see if I can
Yeah.
get one of them.
Yeah.
Them fancy 23 first. The problem is that in that league, it's a bunch of sharks, so I can't imagine anyone giving me a first, but we'll see. Next one here is from Leo Mergla at Leo Mergla 10. Which side here in this dynasty trade? Akers and Henderson. I'm assuming that's Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson, or Josh Jacobs and Brandon Ayuk. All right. Since there's only one player that I really like in this deal, and it's probably not the player any of you are thinking of, I'll go last here. Drew, why don't you start us off here? Are you going with the Rams running back situation, or do you want Josh Jacobs and Brandon Ayuk?
I'll take Jacobs and Ayuk and then see if I can get anything for Ayuk.
That is the perfect answer.
What about you, Rocky? Are you doing the same thing?
Yeah, I think I lean that side. I and I'm with Drew. I don't really have much interest in Ayuk. But there are people that still believe in him, so maybe you can flip him for something decent. I mean, I'm concerned even about Debo. I like Lance for fantasy. I've actually acquired him a couple times this offseason, but I don't know what it's going to mean for his pass catchers. And with Debo and Kittle and Ayuk, I wonder, how much can Ayuk really do? So in what could be a low volume passing off, and not that it was high volume to begin with, but it could be, with Lance taking off, it could be even less than we saw with Jimmy G. So he concerns me, but Akers also concerns me. I didn't like what we saw at the end of last year. Obviously, I do get the injury excuse, but we've never seen Akers be great. Like he had a couple good games in the playoffs. Not this past year, the year before. He had like one or two good games. I don't know how many people remember. He did like nothing in that regular season. He had a couple flashes here or there, but he wasn't even getting the ball for a lot of the season. It was split. He was getting just, mixed in here and there. So we've never seen him produce he's just built up in everyone's mind, I think, because of, his value shot up after that playoff run in 2020. So I have too many concerns about Akers. I'm not really interested in him. So I'll just say the Jacobs points for 22 out of this. Flip it, Ayuk for what I can get.
All right. So the player I like the most in this deal, I'm not saying this is the best player, but this player I like the most is Darrell Henderson. Rocky, I think you summed up Cam Akers well. He might be the first player that we're ever drafting as high as we are because he beat his injury timeline.
Yeah.
It's not based on what he did on the field last year, because if that was the case, dude should be like a 9th round pick. But we're pretty much drafting him because he beat his timeline. And I get it, Achilles, nobody had ever done it before. It was amazing that he was even playing in an NFL game. I get all that. But like I want points. I want fantasy points. I don't want like feel good stories. Like, hey, if I got a couple of those, that's nice. But like, I don't play in any point per feel good story leagues, so I don't care. And let's face it, people like to trash on Darrell Henderson, but he was good last year. Like we got all wrapped up in the Cam Akers hype, and we forgot that Darrell Henderson had a good year.
He did.
I mean, no one walked out there and was like, I won a championship strictly because of Darrell Henderson, but especially where you got him in drafts, like that dude way overshot what you paid for him. So, but the value's on the Jacobs and Ayuk side. Ayuk is literally valueless to me. I mean, Rocky, you mentioned who knows what this offense is going to look like, led by Trey Lance. I guess we're assuming it's going to be led by Trey Lance.
That's true. Yeah.
Jimmy G's still in the house. Who knows? I'm not worried about Debo. The only thing that can stop Debo is Debo, an injury, something like that. That was the reason why we had the one, I'm going to put this in quotes, good Brandon Ayuk season, is because Debo got hurt. And Kittle was hurt for some of that too.
Yeah.
The Amon-Ra St. Brown vibes going on. But, Yeah, people like him. I see people on Twitter all the time, talking about, Brandon Ayuk this and Brandon Ayuk that. And I'm like, all right, cool. I've never seen it with Brandon Ayuk where I am willing to put a lot of value in that. Josh Jacobs values depressed because the 5th-year option didn't get picked up. But if Vegas decides not to re-sign him, which is a very real possibility, someone is going to spend probably way more money than they should to sign him. It happens with running backs.
Not only that, they could run him into the ground in 22, knowing they're not bringing him back next year, which means fantasy points in a better offense this year, most likely.
Right. And if you're not going for a championship, then you sell him to somebody who is, and say, hey guys, I got this Josh Jacobs who's RB9 right now. Let's just say, shouldn't that be worth your 23 first, which is probably going to be in that 10 to 12 range if you're selling him to a real contender? Okay, cool. Like, I'll take that as the Josh Jacobs, payoff, and if I can get a second for Brandon Ayuk, I just turned that into a first and a second. I'm not too upset about that. So yeah, it's the Jacobs and Ayuk side, but only because I think that's where the value's at. All right, let's hit this next one here. Steve Lawson at FF by committee 738. So we're all worried about Treylon Burks, right? And if you're not sure what our man Steve is talking about, the what are they called now? NBC Edge or whatever. I always forget what they're called.
That NBC Edge Sports, yeah.
Edge Sports, thank you. Said that Treylon Burks is wide receiver 3 on the depth chart. So he's behind Robert Woods and I think Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, if I remember the depth chart correctly.
It shows you how much depth charts are worth in June or July. Yeah, June and July.
I'm probably on like 2 NFL depth charts because no one cares.
I know.
They write names in there. They don't care. Like Tom Brady is probably like QB3 on the Bucks depth chart right now. And I was with you guys earlier. I always text Drew, hey, maybe we can get this guy for a second. And as soon as that Treylon Burks thing came out, I texted him and I said, hey, maybe we can get Treylon Burks for a second in this league where we co-manage a team, because everyone brought this up. We saw this with Justin Jefferson. He was behind BC Johnson, if we can remember back that far. But someone really pulled a receipt, and I thank him for it. The last guy that we were a little bit worried about in Tennessee, AJ Brown. There was a blurb where he was the wide receiver 3 on the team. So, God, let's stop. It is June 22nd. I literally don't care if a coach says he hates a dude that he took in the first round. Comes out on a podium and says, I hate this guy. If I liked them beforehand, I'm still going to like them until training camp starts and we see camp battles and maybe a preseason game or two. All of a sudden, if Treylon Burks is playing with the third team in the third quarter of game 1 or game 2, okay, now I'm scared. Now I'm like, whoa, okay, this didn't go the way I expected it to. But if I see Treylon Burks lined up with, I'm not sure if Robert Woods he probably won't play any preseason, but Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, because he's apparently the wide receiver 2 on that team right now. If I see those guys lined up as the starters in game 1 for, the one series they're going to play, I'm like, okay, this was all overblown. Who cares? He's fine. Rocky, what do you think about this? Are you worried about our guy, Treylon Burks?
Not because of anything that's happened this offseason. I had Treylon Burks as my wide receiver too. I still have him there. I do think there is some bust potential. Even having him as my 2, I do acknowledge he has maybe some more bust potential than some other guys. I think I have Olave lower, but I think he's a safer guy. I think like the floor of Olave is probably higher than the floor of Burks, but nothing's changed this offseason. Nothing's changed for me this offseason just because of these reports. I don't put stock in anything you hear out of the offseason pretty much, especially from coaches, but even stuff like this where you're hearing just some stuff from beat reporters. He dropped some passes, or he's got he's had some conditioning issues because of asthma. I don't care. I mean, I'm sure he had asthma in college too, so I'm not that worried about it. He performed pretty well there. So until, like you said, and even preseason, like if he performed poorly in the preseason, I wouldn't even care about that as long as he's running with the ones or the two. Like the only way I'd be worried about it if he's playing in the fourth quarters of preseason. That's the only thing even preseason matters to me, is if you're not playing anywhere near the starters. So yeah, this means nothing to me. I had him as my 2. He's still my 2 in this class, and that probably won't change until at least sometime during the season if he's not playing or looks like crap or something like that.
All right, Drew, are you gonna perpetuate the fear of what Treylon Burks might be, or are you sitting here level headed like Rocky and I?
Oh, I'm attaching that news clip to every trade offer I'm sending for him with our 2nd round pick. Yeah, I think I'm similar with Rocky, where he was probably a top 3 guy for me. I think I might have had, Jameson Williams a little bit higher than him. Really kind of, and that's the problem with this year's draft, is anywhere from like 102 to 106 is basically take who you want, right? So I know you took Jameson Williams with Bill in our OG league. I've taken Garrett Wilson a couple times at 102. So, but no, in general, I'm not concerned about it. If somebody is really that worried, and I guess I'm trying to figure out, is there something that I can do, like Chris Olave and a cheap pick to maybe get him now if I like him better than Olave, if Olave's in that 8, 9, 10 range for me, or do I want to see if maybe I can flip oh god, well, I can't even think of like a Sky Moore. Does somebody want to flip Sky Moore for him now, who is in that 7, 8, 9, 10 range? I would absolutely make that kind of a move if I thought, cool, we don't have any bad news about any of these later guys, so let me take some of that worry off your hands, right? But no, in general, I'm not that concerned about it. And the big thing for me in Tennessee, being local here, is if Derrick Henry looks good and he's healthy to start the year, I will 100% feel good about Burks, Woods when he's back. I think Tannehill thrives in that play action, having to manage and then take advantage and pick his spots, be efficient. If that's what the offense is going to look like, starting week 1 with Derrick Henry looking really good in preseason, or getting good reports coming back, and he's already putting some of those workout videos out there. So yeah, I am not at all worried about a rookie wide receiver. He's got enough to figure out, just like every other rookie wide receiver at this point.
Yeah. If I was ever drunk enough to Chris Olave, I would package him in whatever I needed to get Treylon Burks. He was my wide receiver 3. I had Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams, and then Treylon. Rocky mentioned it. I mean, assuming he didn't just get asthma the day after he was drafted, so an SEC team was able to figure out how to use him really well and manage the asthma. An NFL team is going to figure it out very quickly. So I'm not worried about any of this. But test the waters. We see people panic all the time. I'm sure a few people traded Justin Jefferson after he was 3rd behind BC Johnson. People panic. I always say this. We like to pretend that because we're dynasty players, we're the pinnacle of patience and the pinnacle of waiting things out and seeing how things unfold. We're just as bad, if not worse, than the people who are hardcore redraft players. Very reactionary. Oh my God, Justin Jefferson is the number 3 wide receiver. Treylon Burks is the number 3 wide receiver. This guy stinks out loud. Okay, cool. And then you capitalize. So probably not going to work in 90% of situations. But hey, if you can get Treylon for a second because someone is panicking, go right ahead, trade that second, and just realize you traded a 23 second for a 22 first, and it'll probably make you pretty happy. So this next one here is from Mitch at the Commitch. And this one says, all right, fantasy football experts, I need your absolute best advice to win my home league this year. Don't hold back. Ready to bask in genius. And he said the word genius. So that means that Rocky has to go first. He is our head genius. What is your best advice for Mitch, the Commitch, to win his home league?
Well, first of all, I'm no genius, but I kind of took this as, I assume we're talking redraft here.
Yeah,
wasn't
probably.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of redraft, my best advice I would say is to go hero RB. I would get one of those stud running backs and then load up everywhere else. Get yourself an elite tight end. I think that always helps. And so that's kind of my general advice. One running back, fade your RB2. RB2s generally don't matter that much unless you somehow luck your way into two studs. So load up at receiver, load up at tight end, draft your quarterback late. And more specifically for this year, when I saw this question, this popped into my head. Try and load up on the AFC West, because I think there's a ton of good offensive players there, and they're all gonna be playing each other 6 games a year. So I think that's a good strategy for 2022 if we're talking redraft. Is and none of those teams have great defenses. San Diego kind of beefed up a little there. I just call them San Diego. Los Angeles beefed up a little bit. You guys didn't even call me on it. You guys
I was gonna let you ride with it as long as you wanted to.
Sounded right to me.
I still do that. I still mess up Washington. I still mess up the Raiders. I do know they're Las Vegas, but yeah. So I would say load up on NFC West players, and you'll probably get a lot of points there, because I expect a lot of shootouts. Like I said, none of the defenses are all that either. So
I like that. Hero RB and the AFC West. So Rocky is our guest genius, our resident genius. Drew, why don't you go next and help Mitch out here?
Yeah, for redraft, it's interesting. I think for redraft, I ascribe to a little bit of what the RotoViz guys, those folks over there, do for some of their higher stakes leagues. They are pushing more to zero RB. And again, depending on what the rest of your team or what the rest of your league does. We just talked about a guy in the AFC West that's undervalued that will probably have a decent year this year. So if you can get guys like Jacobs, or I think we talked about Montgomery a little bit last week, and that I am totally fine in redraft rolling with one of those two guys in my RB1 this year, and then kind of loading up in depth and seeing what you can put together after that. If that means that you're going to get 4 or 5 really good wide receivers, and then of course, depending if you're in 2 QB, super flex, 1 QB, that'll kind of adjust where you take your quarterbacks. If it's any kind of a 2 QB or super flex, then I am definitely in the camp of I'll take one of the elites if I can get them early on. If not, then I love Rocky's idea of taking an elite tight end, depending on what your scoring looks like. And then I'll load up on those wide receivers, and I'll ride with the variability throughout the year, ride the bye weeks. And then, yeah, I'll take those running backs. If I can get Jacobs or Montgomery in round 7, 8, something like that as my first running back, and then I'll feel good about that rolling into this year, with whether it's the competitive nature of that division in AFC West, or a guy like Montgomery who just gets undervalued each year because the Bears suck, they haven't done anything to help his line, et cetera, et cetera. Cool. I'll take a borderline RB1, and then like Rocky said, I'll load up on 3, 4, 5 other RB2 guys, or guys that are an injury away from being relevant for some of those weeks. So I think some of that even is kind of where I am in the fishbowl as well. The third round reversal kind of throws a wrench into things, but yeah, I don't plan to take a running back in any of the first 3 rounds, unless there just happens to be some sort of screaming value there that everybody else misses, but probably not in this tournament.
I will say in Dynasty, I'm even more inclined to go zero RB this particular year, just because you can get Zeke in like the 7th or 8th round, who was an RB1 his entire career and probably will be again this year. You can get Fournette a little later. You can get Connor a little later. There's so many guys you can get like the veteran guys. It might only give you a year, but then you try and recycle to the next guy next year. So I am moving more. I used to be a heavy running back guy. I'm moving more away from that in general, but specifically this year, even if you want running backs, like you can get talented guys later just because they're old.
So my business, and this works for redraft or dynasty, but I'm going to focus this on redraft because I think he's asking about redraft. Exploit the weaknesses, and this is what I mean by that. Both Drew and Rocky talked about hero RB and zero RB. So if Rocky and Drew are in your home league and 5 other guys that listen to Rocky and Drew are in your 12-team home league, that's 7 dudes that are going either hero or zero RB. Okay, cool. Pick up the running backs because guess what? The values are going to be there because these guys are saying, hey, I'm not looking at a running back till round 6, round 7, round 8. That's their strategy. That's what they're going with. And that's fine. By the way, please, I'm not here to shame anybody's strategy. Go zero RB, hero RB, heavy RB. I don't care. Do what you want. Make yourself happy. But realize that. But also realize, home league has become a big term. Home league used to be like guys like us would get some of our family members and some of our friends who, just played for fun and, they didn't really know a lot. Maybe 1 or 2 other guys in your league knew a little bit something and they would get crazy. But now you hear about home leagues where, everybody's like a trained killer. They all, they know, that they want, Velus Jones in the last round. That's their sleeper, guys. So it all depends on what your home league is kind of like. But if you see that, half of the teams in the league by round 8 have 2 or 3 quarterbacks on their team or have 2 kickers, all right, hey, guess what? That means that you might have to take quarterback a little bit earlier than you planned because if you wait till around 10, 11, 12 in one quarterback leagues, like, every redraft podcast will tell us, you might be taking Baker Mayfield. You might be taking QB, 28 because you waited too long. But you exploit those weaknesses. If everyone's going zero RB or hero RB, go heavy RB. Get the values, pick them up. If everybody is waiting on quarterback, guess what? That means you can wait longer on quarterback too. Or the opposite. Maybe you go, wait a minute, it's the 4th round. And 1 quarterback startups, I think ADP right now, I think Patrick Mahomes is going like 306. I think Josh Allen is going 207, I think.
Too late.
If it's too late. If it's in the 4th round, no one's taking a quarterback, get yourself Patrick Mahomes, get yourself Josh Allen, because the value is there at that point. So that's why I say, exploit those weaknesses because yeah, everybody will tell you, oh, you don't need to take a quarterback to the 12th round. You can get Matt Stafford in a 1 quarterback league, and you probably can. But you're probably going to be a lot happier with Josh Allen and, your 12th round guy, whoever that might be, as opposed to, Jalen Waddle and the quarterback you take in the 12th round. Because Josh Allen is a cheat code. So exploit those weaknesses. Watch what everyone's doing because a lot of times people just look at the ADP list and go, all right, this guy's on top. I'm going to click the guy on top. I'm going to fill my team up and I'm going to be happy because I always got the guy on top. I mean, you can win like that. It's a possibility depending on who you're playing with. But it's a lot better when you go, oh, wait a minute. I'm in round 5. Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce are still on the board. What are we doing here? Why is it round 5 and these tight ends are on the board? I'm going to take one of those guys. And then all of a sudden you have like a Josh Allen, Mark Andrews quarterback tight end stack that you're the top guy in both of those positions every week. And that's a good place to be when, like Rocky said, you can still find Zeke way too late. You can get yourself a lotto ticket on Saquon Barkley and hope that he's fully recovered and he does his thing. You can go even later and get yourself an Elijah Mitchell. There's places where you can pick and wide receiver so deep that you can get a good wide receiver just about. Yeah, exploit the weaknesses, watch what everybody's doing, and kind of pick them apart that way.
See, Josh, you're the real genius here, because that to me is the best advice right there. And that is what I do in almost every draft. Actually, I may have said, and that is what I'm looking to do in a lot of it, especially redraft here or RB. But if the draft goes a certain way, the old saying is be like water, just go with the flow of the draft, and that is what I always try and do. I never, even with my whole, a lot of people know my whole quarterback thing. If it's for some reason there's only like 3 or 4 quarterbacks going in the first round of the draft, I'm at 112 in a dynasty superflex league. I'm taking a quarterback. I'm taking whoever's the 4th or 5th quarterback on my board. It's not like a hard and fast rule for me, and that to me that's the best advice of all. Is go with the draft. Zig when other people are zagging is very good advice.
Yeah, and it always works out well when you do it that way. We briefly mentioned Scott Fishbowl. I was in it last year, and I was like top 50 or something like that. And I drafted Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers in the 2nd and 3rd round. Why? Oh, these, a lot of times you get dynasty people in there. Oh, they're old, and it's like, this is redraft. I don't care. Like, they're going to play the whole season. They're not going to, they're not going to have a stroke on the field or anything like that. They're going to be fine. So, but we like disparage Kirk Cousins because it's never flashy. We disparage Tom Brady because he's 47. We're just like, they're old. They're not flashy. Ben Roethlisberger last year, he can't throw more than 10 yards. Cool. He's going to throw it 700 times. So if he can't throw it past 10 yards, that's fine. He's still going to throw it 43 times a game. So who cares? And those are the inefficiencies that usually lead to wins, is when you're doing things that are against the grain and against what everybody else is trying to do. We got this next one here from Nick Penikoff at Nick Penikoff. I'm getting Travis Fulgham vibes from Gabriel Davis, and I like Davis. I just think people need to pump the brakes. Jamison Crowder is a better wide receiver than Davis, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's the wide receiver too. I also fully expect James Cook to be pretty involved in the passing game. So there's a lot to break down. We got a Travis mention in the year of our Lord 2022. We got Jamison Crowder in there. We even found a way to get James Cook in there. So, Rocky, since the first mention was of former Philadelphia Eagle great Travis Fulgham, what do you think about this? What do you think about Gabe Davis? Is he that dude? Is he the 1B to the 1A that is Stephon Diggs? Or is it maybe a little bit too much hype for what we're all trying to put out there?
Well, first of all, I had to say, I love Travis Fulgham for that month as an Eagles fan.
Don't get me started.
And I really thought that was going to continue. I was like, you can't do this well for a month against legit cornerbacks and not be some. And he just disappeared off the face of the earth. Like, I don't know what happened with that guy.
I don't know how he didn't get a job last year with some of the trash cans that the Eagles were putting out there. I don't get it at all. But go ahead. This is your time.
I don't either. But Gabe, I'm kind of I'm not a Gabe truther, but I don't think he's. Here's my thing with Gabe Davis. I think if you were that good, you would have been able to beat out Emmanuel Sanders and get more targets than Cole Beasley. That's what I think. And that's the excuse a lot of people like to use for why he hasn't performed up till now. He had those guys in his way. Is Jamison Crowder any worse than Cole Beasley? Is Jamison Crowder going to take all these targets? Not that they play, the slot guys are taking away all Gabe Davis's targets apparently. So I do question. I'm not. I do think he could be good. Not great, but good this year, better than he's been. Just because I don't buy the James Cook narrative. I don't think he's going to get a ton of targets. They've never really targeted the running back. I know the narrative seems to be that that's what they want. They tried to sign J.D. McKissick. They thought they had. I still don't think it's going to go as well as people think. James Cook is another guy I've been off of this whole draft season. So I think by default, Gabe almost has to be better than he's been, just because I don't know that Crowder is going to do much more than Beasley did last year. There isn't really a Sanders there this year. So, and I don't think they're going to start targeting the running backs like crazy, maybe more than in the past, but it's not going to be like he's getting Christian McCaffrey targets or something like that. So I think he's improved, but I still only see like wide receiver 3, which would be an improvement for Gabe Davis. So I'm not a truther, but I do think he's better than he's been. I don't think he'll be Travis Fulgham, though.
Oh, so he's not going to be that good. All right. So Drew, they're throwing shell, man. Drew's out. He's upset that that Gabe Davis will never reach Travis Fulgham levels. Drew, they talking trash on your mans. Do you have a rebuttal?
I almost deleted this off the show sheet. Yeah, I don't know. Travis Fulgham vibes. I don't think so. I think Gabe Davis has been there. He's lasted longer and been more notable for longer than Fulgham was.
Exactly.
His month, 6 weeks. So yeah, I like him pretty well. I don't know that I would label myself a truther. I probably skew more toward a truther than a doubter at this point. If you're telling me, I don't know who else you'd put in that group. I guess some other names that have been lumped in, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown, Darnell Mooney. Between those 3, I would probably take Davis before the other 2. I could make a case for Amon-Ra St. Brown after some of the work he did last year, but being attached to Josh Allen, I think he's continuing to build rapport there. There are a decent amount of weapons. You throw in Dawson Knox now, and yeah, I think to your point, Rocky, I expect Jamison Crowder to take over some of the Beasley roles. So depending on the defenses that they're playing, there will be some weeks I think where Crowder will have some really good upside in a PPR league for you. I think Gabe Davis will have to continue to be efficient. He's not going to get a ton of targets. So if he gets 4 or 5 targets a game, that's good for him. And you're hoping that, one of them is a touchdown, or he's going to have, 2 or 3 catches for 80, 90 yards, and he'll approach double digits for you. So hopefully Gabe Davis is not a huge part of building your roster for success this year, but I love him as a bye week fill-in and then a flex play, depending on how deep your league is. I know the one that I'm in with you, Rocky, where we've got to start like four running backs and 5 wide receivers. Something like
3 and 4, 3 and 4.
Yeah,
but there's 12 starters also. Yeah, there's flexes.
Yeah, I'd love to have Gabe Davis as my wide receiver 4. Depending on how the rest of my roster looks, possibly even my wide receiver 3, depending on what I drafted. So I don't think Fulgham is a realistic comp for what will happen this year moving forward. He's done enough. If anything, I'm probably more worried about guys like Isaiah McKenzie, who seem to, find their spots to really shine, whether it's on special teams. If he really emerges as another receiver, then I think he would be more likely to give Gabe Davis a harder time. I see recovering Ridley Truther here. How does a Bills fan feel about Shakir? Khalil Shakir. I honestly don't know. Another speedster. We'll see what that looks like. I think he probably starts special teams. I think he and Isaiah McKenzie will probably go at it for a little bit and see what comes out of that. But to Rocky's point, I think Gabe Davis has a shot to level up a little bit and really could be the wide receiver too. But what does that really mean? Week to week, there could be weeks where, like I said, Jamison Crowder will really be, the outlet there. I don't know what to expect from James Cook. I've seen people projecting as high as like 60 or 70 receptions as a rookie. I think that's unreasonable. I think that's really high. I think he could probably get, 30, 40 targets pretty easy. So 2 to 3 a game. But yeah, outside of that, I like Gabe Davis overall. I don't have a whole lot to back that up outside of, he had a really good last year at was it UCF where he was?
I think so, yeah.
So yeah, I think Josh Allen makes them all better. So it'll be tough to predict outside of Diggs, who's really going to be dominating there. And that's kind of the blessing and the curse of having an offense like that.
As you were talking, Drew, it kind of occurred to me something you said there. He could be the wide receiver too. What does that mean? What does that mean? It kind of makes me think. Reminds me of like we were always searching for that Green Bay wide receiver too. I'm not sure there is going to be anything that super matters after Diggs. I think it's all going to be split up among all those guys, Cook and Crowder and Gabe and McKenzie and Knox, and I don't think anyone. I don't know that any of those guys steps up to be anything special, anything that we really are chasing after.
Yeah, I'll wrap this one up since I have no skin in the game. Nobody from any of my teams was mentioned here. All right, so first of all, Aki and I are doing a lot of agreeing, which is funny because we a lot of times do a lot of disagreeing. James Cook, man, yeah, guess what? If you were looking for your Trey Sermon of 2022, here we go. Dude that nobody had in their first round mocks before the draft. Now, he's a part of the Bills. He's got to be good. And it's like, well, wait a minute. If he was so good, why weren't we mocking him in the first before the draft?
I've called him the low-end version of Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Jeez, that's
lower rank back, pass catching guy. Everyone vaulted him up because the offense he went to, but that offense doesn't throw lots of running backs. That's what he is to me.
I wish we had the capabilities. I would play the GIF right now of the dudes dancing with the casket on their shoulder because Rocky just put James Cook in a body bag. But yeah, I'm not into all this. Hey, let's make James Cook a thing. But I like to look at what NFL teams tell me, not what I think myself, because I'm not as smart as people who get paid lots of money to run NFL teams. And the Bills told me that they felt like they needed to sign Jamison Crowder in free agency, use a pretty decent pick on James Cook, and use another pick on Khalil Shakir, who we mentioned earlier. I think if you got Gabe Davis and Gabe Davis is supposed to be that dude, I don't need all this other stuff. We'll get some, we'll get some depth for the wide receiver room. But, I mean, bringing in 3 guys to maybe supplement or help Gabe Davis or like I don't like that. And here's another interesting thing. Since you guys are making such great points, I had time to look at the old statistics and see if they can lead our way. Jamison Crowder's been in the league for 7 years. It actually feels like he's been in the league longer, but this is going to be season number 8 for him.
I thought he came in with Frank Gore. No, I'm kidding.
Maybe when Gore got to the Jets.
The only people that came into the league with Frank Gore was like Roger Staubach and
yeah.
But if you young people don't know who that is, hit the Google machine. But this is going to be season number 8 for Jamison Crowder. Can you guess how many times Jamison Crowder has had less than 70 targets in his 7 years in the league?
The way you're asking it, I would assume not many.
One.
One is correct. Do you know how many times in Gabe Davis's short career he's had 70 targets?
0.
That to me says, wait a minute. We bring in a guy that, by the way, has had 2 seasons in the league where he's had over 100 targets. And every other season except for one more, he's had over 75 targets. So this guy gets on a team and the team gives him targets. Now, he's going to be 29 in the 2022 season. And Rocky knows how we hate old people. We don't like them. They're not good anymore. But I don't know. Sounds like a guy that's going to get some targets and take some targets. Is he going to take targets away from Stephon Diggs? I don't think so. So it's going to be, Gabe Davis, rookie season, 62 targets. Last year, 63 targets. Maybe he bumps up to 65 targets this year. And I'm just not seeing that as anything that I want to, you know, hold my hat on. Now, Travis Fulgham probably had 65 targets in the month that he was a thing, but that worries me about Gabe Davis, and I would not be drafting him. I'm not sure if he's still going super early, but I know at early in the drafting season, he was going pretty early after the splash game in the playoffs. So yeah, I'll stay away. I'll get Jamison Crowder a lot later, who will probably give me very similar production, and be happy with that, and not touch James Cook.
And by the way, I was just curious because Shakir had come up. For all the love we give, and it seems like it's happened since he came into the league. For all the love we give Gabe Davis, he was drafted 20 picks higher in his draft than Khalil Shakir was. So I mean, who's to say Khalil Shakir doesn't eclipse him? I mean, he was 120. He was a day 3 pick. I mean, the kind of the love that he's gotten since coming into the league far outweighs what it deserves, I think, from the fantasy community.
It's amazing how much, and I say, I said this earlier, we're supposed to be the pinnacle of patience, and we see one good playoff game, not even a game that helps you during the fantasy season, but a good playoff game, and we're like, this dude has arrived. We saw it with
but
Sony
even before
Michel
that, there were Gabe Davis truthers.
Oh yeah, every time Gabe Davis gets some hype, I go sell him for a first right now. Get your first round pick and get out. And again, right after that game, if the trading block was open for my league and I had Gabe Davis, which I have 0% of Gabe Davis, I would have been like, hey, who wants to give up a first for Gabe Davis? I know you all love him now. He's everyone's darling. And I would have cashed out.
If you have him in your rosters, you probably should have sold him already, because a day 3 wide receiver to get the value spikes you've gotten out of Gabe Davis is what you dream about.
Yeah, you've had at least 2 windows where you could have gotten a legitimate first round pick for Gabe Davis, and he is never, for any prolonged period of time, proven that he's worth a first round rookie pick. So, there you go. Last one, going back to back with former Eagles greats here, from Joe Pepe at JPep20. Am I crazy for liking Zach Ertz late in fantasy drafts? We have a D-Hop suspension. Kristen Kirk is elsewhere. Chase Edmonds is down. And although Hollywood Brown played with Kyler in the past, Ertz is one of the few players Kyler had last year that's worth fantasy value. So, would we be crazy for going after Ertz later in our drafts? Rocky, you went first last time. We'll let Drew go first this time and talk about former Eagles great Zach Ertz.
Are we talking? I'm not sure what we're talking here for a redraft or dynasty, but either way, the answer is no. I mean, I would love to have Zach Ertz on a few of my rosters later on as my tight end 2 or something like that. For all those reasons, and he's just a good player. He's a good tight end. He's savvy. He gets himself open. He may not get break long runs after the catch or something like that, but I mean, it didn't take him long to catch on last year with Murray. There's certainly the environment for him to do well, and if Hollywood continues to stretch the field, then there's going to be a lot of room underneath for him to make a few catches. And for those of us that are playing in more of the tight end premium leagues, 5 catches, 60, 70 yards. Yes, please. Don't even need touchdowns at that rate.
Yeah, and it's funny because after the trade, we said, well, Zach Ertz is done. He's moving to a new team halfway through the season. Arizona's offense doesn't go to the tight end that often. And we forgot that the tight ends were like Max Williams and Ricky Seals-Jones and, a lot of guys that are way better than me at football, but compared to other NFL players aren't that good. And we saw it right away. I mean, it wasn't like we needed 4 games for Zach Ertz to ramp up, and then he hit the ground running and was dominating. And I can't believe that a full off season, he probably knew a percentage of the playbook, just coming into the team. He's going to know the whole playbook. he's a veteran. He's been there. He's seen it. You could give me Zach Ertz, and if I'm playing the, if I'm not first, I'm last tight end strategy. Yeah, I'll take Zach Ertz, and he'll probably roll me to like a tight end 10, tight end 11 season, and that's fine. Like for where I'm probably going to get him in a draft, I am more than okay having a low end tight end 1 where I'm probably drafting him a lot later than other guys that are going to finish behind him. What do you think, Rocky?
Yeah, I'm totally on board with both of you, and Drew mentioned him as a tight end too. If you decide to fade the position a little bit, I don't mind him as my tight end 1. I was just looking in trade addicts leagues. He was, and they do have a pretty hefty premium. It's 1.75, and he had 74 catches last year, so that does help. But he was tight end 6, and I think he could have a similar stat line this year. I mean, some of that's maybe because Hopkins was hurt, but Hopkins is going to miss 6 games. So that at least starting off the season, he should be very good, just like this guy was saying. And yeah, other than really Rondale, there's not really anyone who really was playing with Kyler last year for an extended period of time that's going at least to start the season until Hopkins is back. So I know Hollywood does have the college connection, but no one that was in the offense last year. So yeah, I just agree with both of you. He's a great pick if you're not going to go elite tight end like I was saying earlier in a redraft or dynasty. I love getting Ertz later. He might be the best guy if you're going to wait on tight end. If you're going to fade Andrews and Kelsey and all those guys, to me he's the clear late round guy that you want to go get.
Yeah, I think we all agree. Like if you're not getting Kelsey's, Andrews, Kittle, Pitts, something like that, and you're just like, screw it, I'll be the last guy to take a tight end. You'll probably still get Zach Ertz, and like I said, he's probably going to outperform guys that are taken before him. So, Dawson Knox is a guy I can see him outperforming. We all love Dawson Knox. Guys like
see him outperforming Goddard.
Yeah, as funny as that might sound on its face, it's not really. Like, I would not be shocked at the end of this season if Ertz is, tight end 10 and Goddard is tight end 12. Yeah. And we're like, we were much happier having Zach Ertz on our team than Dallas Goedert. Drew, you can kind of take a back seat, maybe get some popcorn, laugh it up a little bit, because we got one more tweet here from Rocky himself at Dynasty FF Addict, and he had a Trevor Lawrence thread, and this will make you happy because we have our Trevor Lawrence Tua bet.
I need to get my popcorn.
Yeah, get your popcorn. He said, so is T-Law possibly just not good? Goes, I know Urban Meyer, bad weapons, yada, yada. But his rookie season was historically bad. And then we're gonna go into the stats. I love stats.
I had stats.
Going back to 1980, rookie QBs that played a full 16-game season, and Trevor Lawrence played 17 games. So I do want to put that out there. I want to strengthen Rocky's argument here. 17 games Trevor Lawrence played. Having stats as bad as Trevor Lawrence, 12 TDs or less, at least 1 interception a game, under 3,700 yards, there's 2. Rick Meyer in 1993, he got better later in life. And Geno Smith never got better. Even though he had like two kind of amazing games for Geno Smith with the Seahawks. Yikes. But not all QBs play a full season in their rookie year. Counting stats don't tell the whole story. Rocky trying to keep it fair and balanced. So guys that have played at least 10 games, you get a list of Trevor Lawrence, Chris Winkie, David Carr, Tony Eason, Jack Trudeau, Scott Secals? I don't know. Jimmy Clausen and Ryan Leaf.
And this was doing right stats rather than counting stats. So this was under Trevor Lawrence's 60% completion, under 2% TD percentage, over 2.8 INT percentage, and 6.0 yards per attempt or worse. That's what that list was.
If you lower it to 8 games played by Alex Smith, he does hit the list. Alex Smith hits this list. So there's your high-end comp, okay? But it appears that no one in the modern NFL who's played a sizable amount of games in year one has ever been as all-around bad as a rookie, as Trevor Lawrence, and gone on to legit success. Again, people will point to Meyer, etc., but I doubt he's the only rookie in 42 years with a horrible head coach. Plus, it's not like the organization as a whole has been stellar over the years and seems poorly run currently. For him to even have a decent career seems like an outlier at this point. I actually said to Rocky, we talked about this, and I said this would make a good debate pod. I want to start like some debate pods because I've gone to war for Kenny Golladay, words I'd never thought I'd say in the year 2022, and I've gone to bat for Trevor Lawrence. So.
Did this thread hurt your soul, Josh?
It hurt my soul. There was some, you know why? Because it wasn't just that Trevor Lawrence sucks, and that was it. A lot of good stats in there.
And I honestly went into this. I wasn't just trying to prove Trevor Lawrence sucks. I don't hate Trevor Lawrence. I was just curious myself. Like, is there anyone who's been this? Because I knew he was bad. Like, he was awful last year, and I was just curious if there was anyone who had gone to success. As I stumble over my words, and it was basically Alex Smith. That was the best end.
All right, so I want to pick this apart a little bit with my own stats because I read this and I go, this hurts me as someone who I think I've realized, and I don't think I ever fully bought into this, but maybe a small part of me did when we were talking about Trevor Lawrence as the greatest QB prospect since Andrew Luck or Peyton Manning. I think any part of me, the 5% of me that maybe bought into that has, paid those dues, and we're out on that. But I think he can be a pretty good quarterback, and let's put some things out here. Trevor Lawrence, not the first rookie quarterback to ever have a bad head coach, but Rocky. Urban Meyer was not bad. Urban Meyer wasn't even horrible. He would have had to upgrade what he did to be horrible. Let me give you a couple of examples. He didn't know who 99 on the Los Angeles, and I got that one right, Rams was. By the way, if you don't watch all the games and not near 99 for the Los Angeles Rams is Aaron Donald. Arguably the best defensive player in the league. Okay. That's fine. There's 32 teams, right, Rocky? That's a lot of players to remember. It can happen, right? I want to throw a name out here, and you might know it because you're big into fantasy, or you're big into football in general. Do you know who Andre Cisco is?
I do not know who Andre Cisco is.
Okay, so Andre Cisco was drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Okay, pretty impressive, right? Andre Cisco, drafted by those Jaguars. He is a safety, and he was taken with a second-round pick, I believe, and I am looking this up right now to make sure that I am not lying to anyone. Oh, third-round pick, I'm sorry. So a day 2 pick.
And Urban didn't know who he was.
a reporter after a game asked Urban during his press conference. He said, "How do you feel about Andre Cisco playing more snaps?" Urban's response: "He's getting out there more and playing more in games." Here's the problem. What the reporter meant was, how do you feel about Andre Cisco getting more snaps? Because Andre Cisco did not play in that game. But Urban Meyer answered the question as if Andre Cisco had played in the game that he just coached. So not only did he not know the players on other teams, I mean, legendary Hall of Fame players like Aaron Donald, He didn't even know when the players on his own team were in the game. That's not bad. That's not horrible. That is a level of incompetence we may have never seen in the NFL before. And Rocky, we've seen the rich coat tights. We've seen bad. We've watched the NFL long enough. I've watched Jason Garrett. I've seen bad. I've seen bad things. Urban Meyer might be the worst ever. I always say this. Trevor Lawrence, first rookie quarterback who was also his team's head coach. He actually had to go to Urban Meyer and tell him to put James Robinson, who, by the way, I think we all agree is a pretty good NFL player, back in the game because he had taken him out and left him out. All right, so that's how bad Urban was. Not just horrible, not just bad, just another level. Weapons, right? Weapons are bad, yada yada. But let's dive into the yada yada because it's easy to yada this away. The best player in terms of running back or wide receiver was Marvin Jones with 835 yards. For the entire season, he was the best. James Robinson had 790, I want to say. I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head, so if I'm a little wrong, excuse me. They had no player reach 900 yards. They had no player reach double-digit touchdowns. I didn't get a chance to go through every team in the NFL, but the only two teams that I found that had done that this year were the Jets and the Giants. Both of those teams are pretty bad too. And the Jags were in that category. Players that had more yards than number 37 in the league, Marvin Jones. AJ Green, Chase Claypool, and the guy who's their number one receiver now, Christian Kirk. Listen, am I a big fan of how the Jaguars have spent their money? No. They paid a lot of money to guys that have not shouldn't have gotten that money. I'm just trying to put it nicely. Their number 4 player in yards per game was the postman, Dan Arnold, who came halfway through the season. Number 3, Laquan Treadwell. Number 2, the other guy. What is his name? The guy that LaVista Chenault, who nobody likes now. And number 1, of course, was Marvin Jones. So per game, those were his 4 best options. That's bad. That's not just like, hey, he had bad weapons, like ghetto. That's like really bad. That Laquan Treadwell is a top 3 yards per game option on your team. Now, I think Christian Kirk will be adequate. I think he will be better than 835 yards as long as he stays healthy. I think he might actually break into, I don't know, like the top 32 this year instead of like 37th being your leading receiver. Travis Etienne is interesting. I don't know how to feel about him. Twitter, there's a big like upswell in Travis Etienne love. It could be interesting having T-Law with a guy that he's used to from their Clemson days. We'll see about that. But I think having like your number 3 guy instead of your number 1 guy is a big upgrade. And most importantly, they upgraded to your former head coach, Rocky, Doug Peterson, the guy who won a Super Bowl, the guy that knows how to run a football team. We can argue, is he that good? Whatever. I think he is a fine head coach. And I think having a guy who had been a quarterback in the league is going to really help Trevor Lawrence out because Trevor Lawrence not only was a rookie, but literally had to figure this all out on his own. I mean, Urban Meyer wasn't helping. Urban Meyer probably didn't even learn his name till like week 6. So I think we have to say that Trevor Lawrence was terrible. That we can't argue that. It was bad. But I think to say that he's done after a season, I'm gonna get in with the shovel. I'm gonna take a little bit of dirt off of his grave. I don't think we can bury him. I think that you know the head coach is going to do a lot for this team, and just having mildly better weapons to be better for Trevor Lawrence. Plus, they actually spent some money on that offensive line, which for some reason they just thought they didn't need to do last year. They took a quarterback number one and then spent no money on the offensive line. So that's my argument for Trevor Lawrence. But I don't know. I don't know if we've ever gotten your opinion on this, Drew.
I just want to chime in real quick before Drew gives his thoughts on Lawrence. I just want to say first, I don't hate Lawrence. This isn't a Zach Wilson situation here, but but I do. In rebuttal to some of what you said, I know Urban Meyer was an idiot in a lot of ways, but I don't know that he was making Trevor Lawrence throw 17 interceptions either. I mean, that to me, that doesn't really as much come down to coaching. You can avoid interceptions. The coach doesn't make you throw interceptions. He may not have put him in the best position to having more than 12, which again, that's 12, 1-2 touchdowns on the season. But you can take better care of the ball regardless of what your coach is doing. And the other thing was, yes. You even said this, that they mildly upgraded the weapons. It's very mildly. I mean, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Zay Jones is not the thing that dreams are made of here. So that's probably bottom third in the league in terms of in throwing Marvin Jones in there too, I guess, in receiving options. So it's not like he's got like this, like they've upgraded massively there to help him out in the way they have for Zach Wilson and the Jets. So I still think it's going to be a struggle this year. It's not that I think that I came into this wanting to kill Trevor Lawrence. It's just, it looks so bad. Like given history, it looks really bad. And given what we've seen this offseason, other than Peterson, who I agree is a massive upgrade. But other than that, I don't see a lot of hope.
Now I'm gonna rebuttal your rebuttal here. This is why I want to do.
Drew's not gonna get to talk the rest of this.
No, I told Drew to take the night off. He was done once we started this. So I heard two things there. A, I heard you're willing to trade away Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and Evan Ingram for Marvin Jones, Laviska Shenault, and Dan Arnold. That's
no,
what I heard.
I did agree with you that they mildly upgraded, but that's very mild. That is a mediocre at best group of weapons he's got this year.
It's not. He has not upgraded to a top 5 skill position group, but driving that old Geo Metro is better than taking the bus. And last year, Trevor Lawrence was on the bus. The bus pass was all ripped up. He was taping it together how he could. Now he's got his own car. He could drive around a little bit. So, and I would not discount the effect that a head coach can have, because we can look at a team like the Los Angeles Rams. Jeff Fisher was in there just 8-8 in it every season. Just mediocrity at its best. It was 7-9, 8-8, Jeff Fisher. And then we bring in the man genius. We bring in Sean McVay, and all of a sudden, they're just winning double-digit games every season. They're going to Super Bowls. They're winning Super Bowls. And I think that Doug Peterson is going to put in an offensive game plan that highlights what Trevor Lawrence does well and tries to hide his weaknesses as best as possible. And I honestly think that Urban Meyer was just like, this is the offense we always played at the Ohio State University, and this is the offense we're going to play. And I actually went back and watched some Jags games. Dude, that offensive game plan was hot garbage in July. It was bad. There were flies around that offense. I mean, you're right. Quarterbacks kind of have to understand what's going on and how to avoid the mistakes. But dude, that offensive game plan was really set up for Trevor Lawrence to just pray to God that somebody got open and throw the ball, because there was no innovation, there was no, you know, option routes to get guys open. There was no, I mean, it was just like, hey, here's this offense. We've run the same 6 plays that we ran at Ohio State because we had, you know, 97 5-star recruits and we could just out athletic everyone. And you can't do that in the NFL. Like Doug Peterson knows that. Doug Peterson knows he's not coming in just running an offense based on, you know, hey, my guys are better than your guys, you know, and that's how we're going to run it. Like he knows he's going to have to be creative, and I think Doug Peterson can actually be a little creative. So it'll be fun to see. But before we get to Drew on this, I don't think we've asked your opinion on this bet before. This was pre Doug Peterson, pre Tyreek Hill trade. Drew and I made a bet, total points for the season. T Law versus Tua. Obviously now things have changed, but the bet doesn't change. Bet stays the same. Who do you like this year? Total fantasy points on the season. You got Tua or you got Trevor Lawrence, since you say you don't hate Trevor Lawrence.
I don't hate Trevor Lawrence. I do like Tua, and to me that's pretty easily Tua. He's got the better weapons. He has not been, even in his rookie season, he was not as bad as Trevor Lawrence. And he's been decent. He's got better weapons. I still think there's talent there, and I think we see him step up this year from these first 2 seasons, especially if he can stay healthy. He was yanked in and out of the lineup year 1. He had injury issues last year. So, and he was coming off the injury in his rookie year too, of the hip injury. So, yeah, to me that's pretty easily Tua, given what he's working with, given that he's shown more in the league already than Lawrence has.
It'll be very interesting to see what happens there. All right, Drew. Round us out. What did you like? What did you dislike about the Trevor Lawrence discourse?
I think the biggest pro for Lawrence, like we've been saying all along, is you have Doug Peterson, who made it work for Nick Foles, got Nick Foles paid afterwards. That certainly carries some weight. You're looking at the terrible stats for these wide receivers. However, at the end of the day, who is getting the ball to these wide receivers? So I guess that's something that I want to look into a little bit more is, what were some of the other contributing factors there? Was it the O-line that just wasn't giving him enough time? You see he was sacked 32 times last year. I don't know where that ranks in quarterback sacks for the season. I don't know how many of his balls were uncatchable based on just accuracy. I think as a prospect, he seemed to be somebody that we thought was going to be highly accurate. So there had to be something besides just him not throwing the ball well. But you're looking at a guy like Marvin Jones, who, if he was his best weapon, Marvin Jones has had a 1,000-yard season. He had it with Matt Stafford. He had it with a quality quarterback, and he's flirted with 1,000 yards a couple of different times. So, like Rocky said, I don't know that there's a huge upgrade in the weapons this year. So I don't know that will help him a ton. I don't know that Christian Kirk is really going to be an easier target than Marvin Jones was, who just, for his career has been known to go and get some really tough contested catches throughout the season. So I would like to think that Lawrence takes a step forward. I know he's got a ton of pressure. I can't imagine the psychology that's involved for a guy like him that was the number 1 overall pick, was brought here into, there's part of me mostly joking, but does Jacksonville need to change their name from something that's shortened to Jags, which is just a bunch of guys? Let's get a little more creative. Let's have something a little bit more, I guess it's a jungle cast. That's pretty aggressive, but get something that's a little bit maybe less associated with a negative connotation when we're putting that all over Twitter that this guy is just a Jag. And is he on the team or is he just a role player? But I don't envy Lawrence and what he needs to prove this year. Hopefully he gets the support to do it. I think all of us looking at this, we're in it to see guys do well. I think when push comes to shove, we want to see these guys that have poured their blood, sweat, and tears into getting to where they are. They are 1% of the 1% to get to the NFL. But it is that competition too. So you've really got to be able to put your stuff together. But I think this year, I don't know. I'm very curious to see who has a better season between Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence this year. seeing what the weapons are, and seeing, I believe in Robert Saleh similarly to how I believe in Doug Peterson. I think Saleh's committed. I think he'll make a jump as a second-year coach. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And I am still, I don't think I'm quite as confident as Rocky on Tua outscoring Trevor this year. But I do like what the Dolphins have done as an organization over the last 2 or 3 seasons as well, and some of the moves that they've made, some at the expense of the Texans and some of those franchises that were willing to give a little extra. But yeah, I hope Lawrence does well. I hope he and we've talked about it before. I don't think it's just a coach thing too. I think there's the front office and ultimately ownership has to change for that organization to make a true step forward. So we'll see what happens.
I will say I hope you're right, Josh. For Lawrence's sake, and because I'm a big Peterson fan, I'd love to see him do well. So I hope you're right.
I think we're going to be surprised by the Jags this year, and it's going to be the Doug Peterson influence. And I'm not saying they're going to win like 10 games. That's ridiculous. But, I think a lot of people, I'd be curious to see what the Vegas over-under is. I'm sure, it's something like 4.5 or something like that. And, I could see this team winning 6 games just based on the fact that, Doug Peterson knows what he's doing. And honestly, I think after this season, they're going to fire the GM and just kind of give Doug that power anyway. So I see the team getting better. Drew mentioned Nick Foles. Let's not forget, Carson Wentz was once in the MVP race, and that was when Doug Peterson was his head coach. Obviously that terrible knee injury kind of ended his season, and we've never seen that Carson Wentz again. But I mean, at one point, Carson Wentz was an MVP candidate, and that was under Doug Peterson. So he knows how to coach QBs that have obtained very high draft status in this league, which is always fun to see. So on that note, it's been fun. Had a good time. Actually, before I do the outro, Rocky, you made me realize something when you talked about Tua. Tua's getting the Zach Wilson treatment. They've drafted a bunch of first-round offensive linemen. They brought in Tyreek Hill. They have Jalen Waddle. I think this is the prove-it year for Tua. It'll be very interesting.
Signed Teron Armstead too on the offensive line. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Good point. They have about 48 running backs. Good luck figuring out which one is going to be good.
I totally agree. I mean, if he doesn't step up this year, I think they might be looking to move on.
Yeah, that'll be interesting too. That might be a spot where a lot of the rumors for a few years was going to be the Deshaun Watson landing spot, and it didn't work out that way. I wouldn't be shocked if next quarterback who's disgruntled doesn't end up in Miami. They still have some draft capital, and they've built a team around it. So if Tua's not that guy, they're only a quarterback away from being, a legitimate Super Bowl contender. So that'll be fun. Now I'll do the outro because no more random thoughts will come out of my mouth. First of all, Rocky, thank you for stopping by. Like I said, you always have the open invite. You come over whenever you want. Just in case people, for some odd reason, don't know where they can find you and what you're up to, let them know.
Yeah, I'm on the two pods also that are also on the DAP network. Trade Addicts, which a lot of people I'm sure know about with Russ, Dynasty Outhouse. I more want to plug Junkies, Dynasty Junkies, my other pod. Been doing a lot of fun stuff on there. We just recently had our 100th episode, had all the hosts on. Had my original co-host Dustin Church on, along with all the current hosts, Scott Sidlow, Andrew Hall, Bobby Koch, all really, really smart guys, much smarter than me. So come listen. We're all, we rotate who's on most of the time. But no matter what, somebody smart's on there. So definitely check out Junkies at Dynasty Junkies on Twitter. And I also sometimes host Dynasty Game Night, so check that out as well. That's a DLF pod.
Yeah. Rocky is super smart. I love I love the way he plays Dynasty because it's different. It's not, you're not going to hear him say what a lot of other people are saying. Um, you know, like we were talking about earlier, he exploits the weaknesses, and it's always fun to watch him draft, set lineups, make trades because he is really good at what he does. And the other thing that's really good is the chat. Chat was great. Dude, we got questions, we got comments. Drew was talking about moving half the time. It was a lot of fun. Thank you to everybody that popped in, that said something, gave a question, gave a comment. Doesn't matter. When the chat is going, it always makes the show better. Just remember, for some reason you are watching the show, you are commenting, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you know when all of us go live, because the junkies go live and you want to know when they do too, because like Rocky said, they had episode 100. Such a good episode. I finally got to listen to it
Thank you.
on Monday because I was so far behind on pods. They usually put theirs out Thursday or Friday. But, you know, everybody on there smart. Rocky's smart. Dustin, when he makes appearances, so smart. Andrew, smart. Scott, smart. I mean, it's just like, if you were like, I need to gain advantages, but I don't know how, throw the junkies on, listen to any of those guys, all of those guys talk. They do the find me a trade, which I would love to submit some teams, but Rocky's in most of the leagues that I play in, so I can't submit teams because I feel like Rocky's going to tell me to trade Justin Jefferson for 2 seconds and call it a day. But find
Sounds
me a
good
trade.
to me.
It does, doesn't it? They have find me a trade, which I love because you get a little bit of insight into how these guys think and how they process trade value, player value, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you're gonna want to hit the subscribe and the bell so you know when those guys go live, just like you know when we go live. If you're doing a podcast thing, we're almost at 2 hours. That's a long ass time. You could be doing anything else, literally anything else, and you decided to spend that time with us. We appreciate it. If you just stumbled on the podcast, subscribe. We would love to have you download and listen. If you're already subscribed, hey, can you hit us with that rate and review? Because there's algorithms, just like I forgot to mention for the YouTube folks to leave a comment, because that apparently algorithms that I know nothing about, but it helps somehow. You know, and that's it. That's all I got. So, Drew, let's get out of here.